Well,
the people that will get you in the most trouble are going to be other cops. Like that statement in and of itself, I don't know how many times I've said it, but other cops will probably get you in trouble than people or friends that you have that aren't. The introduction of alcohol, you don't care who you offend. You don't care who you upset. So my alcoholism, not only did it affect me personally, but it affected my relationship. It affected my marriage because it led to me being unfaithful. So when you're walking with God and you make that decision of, yes, Jesus, I accept you as my Lord and my Savior, you better be ready.
Down, it's time to focus on myself, and I'm committed fully, adapt and overcome, stay ready, always fit for duty.
welcome back to the Fit for Duty podcast, episode number 48. We'll be talking about alcohol addiction and the first responder job itself. Today I have with me DeMario, good friend, now friend, my only friend now, and where I live. And then pretty much he wanted to come talk about alcohol impact in law enforcement. Now, as far as what made you even want to kind of come on and talk about alcohol? For me, it was out of the blue, that text.
Well, you know, everything that we kind of just went through this past weekend, it was one of those, I didn't even have to think about it. It was one of those things like you're put into certain situations, you meet certain people, and it's all for a reason, it's all for a purpose. So if I could share the horror stories that I've been through with this, particular struggle, it's one of those things as that's how we reach other people. That's how we get that conversation started with people who out there are probably struggling with the same things that were a serious problem to me for nearly the first 6 years of my career. And I've already been almost 10. So for me, it was a real easy decision just based off the time that you and I spent up at that retreat together. And knowing that you had this platform, the opportunity presented itself. And I thought, who better than you to have this conversation and take that leap of faith and get it done.
No, I appreciate that. It takes a lot of courage. And like I said, for me, it was out of nowhere. Super happy you're going to come on and kind of speak about it. If you don't mind, you kind of go into the retreat that we went through and kind of like what was it about the retreat that made you want to like bring it up? I'm guessing some stuff was brought up when we were there.
Yeah, definitely.
About that topic itself.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been in my faith journey, my walk with Jesus for probably, I'd say at least 5 years now. And when I first started, it was one of those, it was very turbulent. There was a lot of challenges and trials that came. The enemy attacked me big time there at the beginning of that journey. So while I was up there, and I'm there with all these guys and I'm looking around and I'm looking at them and I see some type of struggle that I had already gone through. In some way, shape, or form, I kind of identified that with everybody. So when I was up there, I found myself praying a little bit more for them, for you guys, than I did myself. Because I really didn't feel like I was in a worse spot than I had. I didn't feel like I was in such a bad spot anymore. So the one common thing that I kept feeling was just this sense of redemption and just finding overall peace and my circumstances, and I just felt really good. Like a lot of weight had been taken off of me, and it made me be very appreciative of all those obstacles that not only me, but my wife and I have overcome over the years. And it was just a really good experience to know that, hey, you think you have it good now? Just stay listening to me, stay trusting me, and I'll deliver for you. So that was really the biggest thing that I took away from that.
How long have you been on this walk with Jesus Christ?
I would say probably since 2021. I'm still fairly new to it. Don't know everything. In those couple years, man, it was a lot of ups and also a lot of downs. Definitely the way that you bounce back from the downs is really what speaks loudly to you the most.
Did you guys, were you raised like that?
No.
Oh,
no, believe it or not, I was raised as Catholic as you could probably be.
No, same here.
I was baptized in the Catholic Church. Don't remember that, obviously, because I was like a couple months old.
An infant.
And did my first Holy Communion. I was an altar server. I was totally immersed in the Catholic faith. And when I met my wife, I remember specifically telling her, I'm not converting for you. And we were even taking premarital classes with a priest at the church that I had been going to my whole life.
Yeah.
So, like, looking back at that now, I'm like, I can't believe I did that to my wife, man. Like, here we are taking advice from a man who's never been married.
That's true.
So it was a awakening, just a lot of, I couldn't believe half the things that I was doing. It was weird. Just really, really weird to look back on it now. Know that it's done a complete 180, and it was for the best.
And then you talked about in 2021, was that kind of like when, with your wife, I guessing, was it big?
Yeah, so 2021 was a really rough year for us. We had only been married maybe 2 years at the time. You know, we had the pandemic going on at the time too, right? There really wasn't a whole lot to do other than the obvious: go to work, come home, you know, watch TV. That was about it. That's what 2021 looked like. Just a lot happened that year. I left for a couple of weeks to go do some advanced training for my department. We experienced a miscarriage that November. I almost lost my wife in the process of all that. Stopped talking to my parents around that time. They were absent for almost 2 years. So yeah, 2021 was not a good year for us. It was definitely an eye-opener of, all right, things need to change, and this is how you should probably go about doing that. So that's how that year went for us. And then I was baptized actually in January of 2022. So the baptism I actually remember was in 2022.
Would you say around that 2021 time frame when you're going through all that, alcohol was a big part of the coping?
Oh yeah, 100%. It was just one of those things where it had been normalized so much that I just didn't even think that it was affecting me, or let alone anybody around me. And if it did, I honestly didn't care. It was a real selfish behavior that I had.
When would you say that alcohol was kind of presented in your life when it started?
You know, I would say as far back as I can remember, you know, just growing up, being around my dad and my grandpa, I always saw them, you know, drinking and consuming to excess at certain times. So I think when I first started grasping the concept of what alcohol really was is probably when I was around 7 or 8. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. And because I didn't see anything wrong with it, I thought it was okay for me to do it.
At 8?
No. No, like as I got older and I got into high school, and when I got into high school, you know, obviously it took off. It just, you know, any chance we could get, and it wasn't just us being young and dumb and in high school. It just felt like that rite of passage. Like you had this sense of belonging because everybody else around you was doing it.
I've always wondered, when you're in high school and it kind of, like you said, it took off, and I think about myself as well, same situation, it kind of took off. But in my situation, it was more like, don't do it, which has made me want to do it. In your case, was it kind of similar, or was it more talked about and this is what it is, and kind of more explained, like, don't, you know what I mean, this is why you shouldn't probably do it? Or was it more just like, don't do it, and then what kind of made you want to be thrust into it?
See, I always thought it was kind of hypocritical of specifically my dad telling me, well, you shouldn't do this, when I watched him for years do it in front of me, to sometimes to excess, and sometimes it got him in trouble. And I'm like, well, how are you going to tell me that I shouldn't do this when you've done it and still are doing it? So to me, I almost took it like kind of like a rebellious kind of thing. Like, you're not going to tell me what to do. You know, you're nobody to tell me because you're still doing it. So that was kind of the way that I went at looking at that.
Did you ever get any trouble with alcohol when you were younger?
With my parents, yeah. I mean, I came home drunk sometimes, and there was just no way to hide it, and kind of just had to own up to it. But outside of that, really, no. I never got in trouble with it.
That's good. One thing I used to bring up a lot was when I was pretty much like in the same situation, I would drink and drive a lot.
Yeah.
When I was younger. And I realized how dumb that was, and super happy that no one got hurt. I didn't get hurt, but it just goes to show you how dumb we could be when we're younger and we want to kind of, I don't know, just do stupid things.
Yeah. When
it comes to alcohol itself. As you're doing all this alcohol when you're in high school, how'd it go? Like, what happened after high school? Like, did you go right into law enforcement? Well, obviously not, right? It took about 3 years.
Yeah. So I actually left the Cruces area where I grew up and I was raised. I ended up going to a school up in Silver City.
Where's that?
It's a town probably about an hour and a half away from Cruces. They have a Division II university there. And, you know, my life for as far back as I can remember, with the exception of recent times, was I had a lot of input from my parents. It was do what they want you to do, because I always wanted that acceptance from them. So I always thought to myself, well, if I do what they want me to do, maybe I'll get them to say that they're proud of me. Maybe I'll get them to say that they love me and just be accepted by them. So despite my better judgment, I ended up going to school up there for about a year and a half. So I'm an hour and a half away from home. I don't have to see mom and dad every day. Yeah, the whole drinking thing just got worse. Being in college and being around other people that were obviously of age to purchase it. I could tell you right now, I never went to class. I was always out at the lake. I was always doing something other than schoolwork. So that was kind of like my first immersion into the world of, all right, well, I'm on my own now. Nobody can tell me what to do, until me slacking off in school so much became that much of a problem to where I got back to my parents and they told me, like, no, you're done up there. Like, we're not funding your vacation anymore. You're going to come home. So I came back home and transferred to DACC, or New Mexico State. And by this time, I had already completely got out of the concept of what I was going to school for up there. I didn't want to do it anymore. It was wildlife management. You know, it was pushed on me that you're going to be a conservation officer. You're going to be a game warden. I'm like, no, I don't.
Basically, your parents wanted you to be a game warden?
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that was until I got paid to go.
I know. It's like, it was one of those things like, oh, okay, well, I guess I would like that. You know, I grew up hunting and fishing and I enjoyed it.
Oh, okay, makes sense.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, no, that's not what I want to do. It's really not what I want to do. And then I got bit by the cop bug, the law enforcement bug, while I was in Silver City, from a retired Silver City PD guy from up there who was working at the university as a campus cop. So I came back and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go to school for whatever, for CJ, I think it was. And by July of 2014, I had already started working at the police department that I'm in. And I started off as a security guard.
At that? Okay.
Yeah.
What about what he said made you want to go that route?
It just kind of confirmed it to me, really. Just him talking about how things were. And Silver City is not a big town at all. It's maybe 25,000 people that live there. I have that in my jurisdiction on a good day. So just hearing his stories and just how everybody was with each other, especially in a community like that, that was my, okay, if I could be a part of that, there's the acceptance that I've been lacking at home. Now I can be a part of something. So I ran with it. 2016 came around and I got hired by my department, got sent to the academy, and it happened really fast. You know, I got hired July 1st, 2016, got sent to the academy August 2nd, 2016. So it went by relatively quick from the hire date to me getting shipped out to go to the academy.
And how was that?
I had fun with it. We had a smaller academy. There was only 20 of us. So it was from August till December.
You stay there?
I did.
Oh, nice.
So the academy I went to was at a junior college out in Hobbs, New Mexico. So we were having to drive from Hobbs back home almost every weekend. So that was about a good 5-hour drive. And we were having to do that for the 18 weeks that we were in the academy.
Would you say, because now it kind of makes things different too with alcohol. It reminds me of the Marine Corps in combat training. We'd be there for a week and then weekends we get off. But obviously none of us lived near it. So we would just go out in San Diego and do whatever. When you guys had that weekend off, did you just come home or was it more like go with the boys and just start going to bars and stuff?
So on most weeks, we would get off on Thursdays. So we would turn around and come home Thursday night. It was getting to the point where I would get home or back to the station, drop off the vehicle that we had drove to the academy, pick up mine, and the first place that I was going to was a liquor store down the street.
Dang.
That was the first place I was going to. And I saw nothing wrong with it because I was like, oh, well, I'm just buying a little bit. I'm just going to go home and freaking lay in bed and just watch TV. I don't know. I always had this excuse of, oh, it's innocent. I'm not hurting nobody. It's innocent. But, as it'll come along later, that wasn't always the case.
It was a stressful week at the academy.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. I was still living at home. I was 22 years old. I had no responsibility other than don't screw up, go to the academy, get out, come back.
What were you buying?
Like how much I was buying when I would go to the liquor store?
Yeah.
So it would depend. I mean, really, it would be mostly beer. Sometimes, like a 6 or a 12 pack. And if I felt like it, I'd throw in some whiskey or whatever. I was so sporadic when it came to that kind of stuff. To say that I would pick something specifically every single time, no. Because it was constantly changing.
So I'm actually really curious. I never been one to just drink like alone, like come home and drink. So I'm actually really curious in high school, was it like that where you could just, when you were drinking, was it mostly with friends going to parties or was it drinking alone?
No, so in high school, it was definitely, being around people, being in that atmosphere.
When did it switch for you?
I want to say it switched when I became a cop. Okay. Because the consensus was, or what it was put into my head was, if they're not a cop, they're not your friend. And I think that, like, saying that out loud now is like, wow, I can't believe I believed that too. So I wasn't really able to hang out with other guys that were cops other than the people I was in the academy with. And we got found with each other, which it wasn't going to happen to us because we were so far away. But that's when it started to become normalized by me drinking by myself. It was okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so normalized in law enforcement?
Drinking in general or by yourself?
In general.
I think for those things that I just said, it's, you want to fit in. Everybody else is doing it. Again, it could be that sense of belonging. I know that once I graduated and I had some years under my belt and I was hanging out with this group of friends and they were more senior than I were. These guys had maybe 7, 8, 9+ years at the time. And to me, the 2-year, 3-year guy that I saw it as a great opportunity. Like, oh, I get to hang out with these guys. Mm-hmm. I get to talk to them about the job and, what goes on. So it was almost like a sense of accomplishment to be immersed in that environment with guys like that. Because not just anybody could go and do that. So I think it's just the sense of being around other people who are like you, who know what you're talking about and you know what they're talking about. But, that's not always a good thing. And, I saw it more often than not and it's true, like the people that will get you in the most trouble are going to be other cops. Like that statement in and of itself, I don't know how many times I've said it, but other cops will probably get you in trouble than people or friends that you have that.
Quick pause, because if you're listening to this episode and any of it is hitting a little too close to home, then I want you to hear this clearly. I wrote a book called Breaking the Blue Wall. It's my story. The job, the trauma, the stuff we don't talk about, and what it actually costs when we don't deal with it. But the book is only half of it. When you get the book, I also send you the Resilient Responder Manual, completely for free. The manual is the practice side. It's what you do with everything the job puts on you, mentally, physically, and at home, without therapy or motivational bullshit. The book explains what happens to us. The manual shows you how to take back control again. If you're tired of carrying this stuff alone, go to the resilientrespondercoach.com/book and grab Breaking the Blue Wall. The manual comes with it automatically. All right, now back to the episode.
We stand out. We attract a lot of attention to ourselves. I mean, there's those 2 guys that had gone to our retreat. We saw them at one of the airports that we were at, and me and the guy I went with were thinking, yeah, these 2 are cops, and they're probably going to the same place that we are.
Well, before me and Josh picked you up, I was in the car with Josh, and he's like, "Watch this," and like we go pull out to go. He's like, "This guy just told me they're here," and then he's like, "I don't know, I haven't met any of them, but watch, I could pick out which ones they are." And you start pulling out to the front, and like, "That's him, and that's him." And he rolls out the window. He's like, "Hey, yeah, you guys." He's like, "See?" So you could pick them out. Yeah.
Well, we stick out like sore thumbs, man. It's just the way it is. I don't know if it's the way we walk or talk or what we wear or our haircuts. I don't know. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I need to start wearing more Star Wars shirts.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So I just started working the job, and well, actually, before we get into that, when you're drinking with those guys, and it was more of like an acceptance with these people who have been cops longer, there's pretty much never going to be like a no. Like if they offered you something, it's not going to be to you. It would never. There's no question about it's going to be a no.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really, really weird time prior to me meeting my wife, because I didn't know limits. I didn't have any. Like I said, I didn't have responsibility. I was so consumed with myself and the things that I was doing that I never even took it upon myself to get out of my parents' house.
Oh, so you're still working in?
Yeah, I'm working my full-time job, and I was living at my parents' house until I was, 24? And so, yeah, I mean, if they called or they text and said, hey, we're going here, we're going there, cool, I'll be right there. I never told them no. And that concept of that just sense of normalcy, it carried over into when we first started dating and into our marriage. That, well, my mom and my dad didn't have a problem with this, so I don't understand what you do. That was that awful.
Damn.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Can you explain some of those moments?
You know, and these suck, you know, especially now, just recalling a lot of this BS that I went through and I put my wife through like early on, just knowing that my wife was younger than me, I exploited that because I knew she couldn't go and look for me. She couldn't go to the bars that we were at. And I'd put her in these situations where we'd go out somewhere. She would be us where she was allowed to be as well. But now she's having to drive not only me, but a car full of drunk cops. She's having to drive us around. Like, where does that make sense, you know? That was kind of one of those first moments of...
And you're just dating. Like you're just...
Yeah, and at any point, it's like... I think I remember after one time that had happened, I had texted her the next morning, and I'm like, are we good? Like, do I still have a girlfriend? And, you know, obviously, she stuck around, probably despite her better judgment, but, you know, it never got better, man. And I kept downplaying it. It wasn't uncommon when I wasn't on call, because I go through an on-call rotation, and every single weekend that I wasn't on call, from that Friday till Saturday or Sunday or Monday, I felt this need to drink. So I would do it at home, and then I would invite people over. Well, guess what? Those people don't leave until 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Where is she in all this, you know? Then that kind of evolved into, all right, I'm going to do it when you're at work and I'm off on Mondays. So it wasn't uncommon for her to come home and find me either face down, passed out on the couch, or in the shower, trying to hide the whole day of drinking that I just did. So, and then that evolved into, all right, I'm just not going to be here when you get home. I'm just going to take off. And of course, you know, that was probably the most coward thing I could have ever done, was just take off. And whether that meant me taking off in one of the vehicles that we had, so again, bringing up that whole driving while intoxicated kind of thing, or having other people come and get me, just being prepared of, all right, well, I'm not coming home. So that's how bad it got.
How much are you drinking in these moments? You said a whole day of drinking. It sounds like a lot.
It is, and it was. Like I said, I was never really the type of guy to stick to one thing specifically. If it wasn't working, I would just drink something stronger. And then that's where the whole introduction to drinking whiskey and other stuff just took off after that.
So no one showed you like whiskey. It just has to be stronger. I'm just going to drink it.
So the whole concept of the whiskey stuff actually did, because I watched my dad and I watched my grandpa do it.
Like heavily, or just... The reason why I asked is because when I was introduced to whiskey, I worked in an area in California where there's a lot of farmers, and like all my white partners, like very cowboyish hunters, all this stuff. But when I was introduced to it, it was very like gentleman style. Like, we're not here to do that. Like, here's a 2-finger pour, and very like gentleman. I was like, oh, I like this approach, you know, like,
yeah,
you just, you know, and you like sip it. Like, no, we're not shooting it back. We're sipping it. We're smoking cigars, talking, and that's it. Like, we're not doing anything crazy.
Yeah, no, definitely not that type of vibe. It was, if you're drinking whiskey, man, it's because you're trying to get over something or you're trying to forget something. That was kind of the consensus that I picked up on, just watching others do it. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, like, there was things that I was wanting to forget. But that's the problem with alcohol. It's going to make you forget for a night, maybe. But when you wake up the next morning, guess what? Not only do you have to Except the fact that what you were drinking to forget's still there. But now you have no idea about the mess that you created because you were trying to forget something. So it's that snowball effect. It just made things worse. So you could have no problems starting the night, but as the night progresses up until it's over and you wake up the next morning, other than having a pounding headache, what did you do? What did you say? What was discovered? You know, that just, it made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and my problem is that obviously, you know, with the introduction of alcohol, you don't care who you offend. You don't care who you upset. So my alcoholism, not only did it affect me personally, but it affected my relationship. It affected my marriage because it led to me being unfaithful because I sought that acceptance from someone else when I didn't need to. Because I always saw it in those early stages of like, oh, like my girlfriend, my wife, she just wants to control me. She can't control me. She's just always nagging me. Like, so if she doesn't like it, why doesn't she just leave? That was my mentality for the longest time. Well, nobody's making her stay. So then that evolves into, all right, well, rather than me being a man and either stop doing what I'm doing or me initiating that, all right, this isn't working kind of thing, I started doing these stupid things to antagonize her because I wasn't man enough to admit that I had the problem that I had. And I didn't want to fix it through any solution that was given to me.
So you're purposely drinking more to antagonize her, or the unfaithful stuff to antagonize?
I mean, it could, I would say it was a little bit of both. It was definitely a little bit of both.
If you don't mind, can you kind of go into, did you ever ask her why? Because you talked about, you're saying to yourself, like, why doesn't she just leave? Did you ever ask?
You know, there's one night in particular that I can remember, and I don't know why this night stands out to me more than most. We were living in our first house together, and I remember I had gone and got my beer run, and I always had this really bad habit of listening to music that would make me sad. I felt like if I felt sad, I was feeling something, you know, from stuff that happened on the job to friends that I lost that I just wasn't letting go of. So I was sitting on the couch one night, and my wife had gone into the kitchen and opened the fridge and saw the beer that I had bought, and she had enough. She's like, no, you're not drinking all this. So my wife literally began to pour all the beer that I had in the fridge down the sink. And she did something after that. And I had never had this happen to me. And I was drunk the first time somebody ever prayed over me. And that was the first time, was when my wife prayed over me and asked that I stop this, that this violent circle, that these chains be broken, that the generational curse go away. Of course, you know, in my state of mind that I was in, I was like, I didn't know whether to be upset or, you know, mock her. It was like, I didn't know what to do. So needless to say, like, my night ended after that. And it really kind of stayed the same for a while after that.
Would you say, you kept talking about you're drinking to forget things.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing back in high school, because I like to go back, you weren't trying to forget nothing in high school, correct?
No,
So then
not really.
we go into college and it's still kind of the same thing. We're not trying to forget nothing.
Mm-mm.
Do you know what you started wanting to forget when it kind of started?
Yeah. So I was actually in the academy when I lost one of my good friends. He was an officer in a smaller town in our county, and he was actually shot and killed on a traffic stop while I was in the academy. And
Sorry to hear that.
it sucked because him and I were supposed to hang out that weekend that I came home. And I was maybe 2 or 3 weeks in to my academy. And it was even worse because they had said he was going to be okay. Well, then a couple hours later, that turned into he didn't make it. So I remember sitting in class at the academy, and the director had come in, and she had given us this memo that our sergeant from our PD had wrote us. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, no, he didn't. He's still here. He's fine. I was in denial about it. So the first time I ever wore my dress uniform, it wasn't even for my graduation. It was for his funeral. So I remember sitting at that funeral thinking, this isn't real. This doesn't feel real. Like, I shouldn't be here right now. I shouldn't be wearing this. He should be here because he needs to see me graduate in a couple of months. So I used that as a crutch for the longest time. And I'm pretty sure it was my wife that told me this eventually. And this one, it was a jab, man. And that's one thing I appreciate about her. She's very bold. You know, she doesn't sugarcoat anything. She doesn't like something, she's going to tell you. And she had told me, this is no way to honor him. You sitting on the couch by yourself, drinking and watching videos of his funeral, that's not a way to honor him. So, yeah, I kind of had to, that was kind of my first realization of, you know what, yeah, this is getting old. And of course, you know, the longer you do the job, you know, he wasn't the first one.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been the last one either. And, you know, going to those things, they happen. You're going to go. You know, we went to one not that long ago.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever, as you're going through that, I've experienced that myself. I kept it to myself as well. Did you ever feel like you had anyone to talk to about it? Or you just didn't want to talk about it?
I mean, yes and no. There was a select few from that group of dudes that I used to go and drink with that I knew that if I wanted to have that conversation with them, I was going to be able to. But it just sucks how we had to be intoxicated for that to happen. You know, it's kind of like the same thing with my dad. Like, I felt like my dad only really ever told me he loved me was when he was drinking. I don't think I really ever heard that said so much outside of that. So kind of going back to that, it's like, well, if I drink with my dad, now I have something in common with him, because that's kind of all I had in common with.
That reminds me of our conversation at the retreat, actually.
Right.
So that hit you when I brought that up.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So what I had to kind of, so they can know, like, when I got big into doing this podcast and wanted to kind of like spread the word on the stigma of mental health and be able to talk, and it's okay if your friend dies, and it's okay to be sad.
Yep.
Not it's okay if your friend dies, but it's okay if you're to be sad if your friend dies. Like, that's the biggest premise. Because when my friend died, it was like, just push forward and move on and be very cold. And obviously I'm sad inside and I'm sad on my own. But as far as telling people I am sad, that's not strong. You know, that's not what the Marines do. That's not what we do. We just keep pushing forward, and we just hold all that into ourselves. And so I remember telling you, like, yeah, my whole thing now, this is what I do. This is how I want to help. And it just literally as simple as, it is okay to be sad if your friend dies. It's okay to feel something when doing this job, you know, because we should never be put in that situation where we can't be sad if someone like that is to pass. And I was like telling you, for some reason, I don't know why the stigma is so hard, because you get a bunch of cops drinking, and even though they're all hard at work and they think they're the shit and I'm this hard and blah, 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 again, like myself, but then you get them drunk and they're over here just crying, and they put out all their emotions and their feelings. And I remember you looked at me, but it was like, there was something. Now I see what was behind that statement, because that's pretty, I hate that.
Yeah, it's out there. Toxic masculinity thing of, I wear a gun, I wear a badge, I was a Marine, I'm in the Navy, whatever that label is. So because you're those things, you're incapable of feeling a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
That you're not allowed to be vulnerable. And that's the biggest problem, is that in and of itself, and that alone is this mentality of the not me, not today. I don't want somebody to see me like that. But yet, for as easy as it was, or is, you don't want to open up to your significant other and tell them what's going on, because, and I think the oldest excuse in the book is, oh, I'm trying to protect them. You're not protecting them from nothing, because now their mind is wandering and thinking about your true status, if you're really okay. So without telling them the truth of what's bothering you, you're opening Pandora's box, man. And they'll think and think, and they'll poke and they'll pick and they'll prod until they get it out of you. But why does it have to be that hard? Why can't it be as so easy as you go out with your boys and get drunk and open up to them, but you're not doing that to your significant other? So when all this started getting put into context for me, it was like, yeah, I've been doing this the wrong way for a really long time.
When you guys started dating, it's already been years since your friend had died, right?
Oh yeah. So it was 2016 in August. My wife and I started dating in probably July or August of 2018. So about 2 years had gone by.
And then this was never brought up as far as like how you emotionally feel about the situation. She's just thinking you're drinking just to drink, or was it ever brought up?
You know, I'm pretty sure it came up at one point or another. I'm pretty sure at first I was kind of secret about it, but I think she definitely knew about it early on, because it was kind of one of those things of, I think she was actually getting tired of seeing it. Because every single time, and I remember her telling me that she would go to the TV that we had in the living room, and she would look at the YouTube searches, and his name was one of the first ones that was on the searches, on the recently looked at. After I had, she always said that I was an unpredictable drunk. She didn't know if I was going to be happy or angry or sad, but whatever I was, it was like times 50. So that was a whole nother problem in and of itself. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I did tell her about it. I think the first couple of times it was like, oh, it's okay, he's working through something. But, eventually I know she got tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know she did.
This thing ain't working.
Oh.
This thing ain't
Whatever
working out.
Whatever you're doing, guys,
He's working through something, but it's not working.
It ain't working.
As far as when you look back at everything, or you talked about being happy, sad, different, like so you're all different emotions. It wasn't just one type of drunk.
No, and it was like rolling a dice and literally, all right, this is what you're going to be today.
Yeah.
And then you were going to stay like that.
Can you describe some of those moments of being angry or sad?
Well, obviously the sad parts would come with, watching videos like that of, I had this thing for Five Finger Death Punch too. And for whatever reason, like those songs just like spoke to my soul at the time. So that would really trigger me into getting into this. All right, well, I want to be sad now.
Because you wanted to be in that state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The happy parts, I mean, if I was around other people, which was, I wouldn't say rare. I mean, it was just not as common. I was okay when I was happy. The angry part, when you're drinking, you don't want your juice poured down the drain, right? Or just random little things happen. You just lose your temper for no good reason.
You're talking breaking things or just yelling?
Pretty much just yelling or just letting it be known that I was upset, letting it be known that I was angry. I think the one time that I could honestly speak to that, the yelling, I got into a shouting match with my mother-in-law in her house while we were living there.
Man.
Yeah, that did not roll over well for me, and keep in mind, like,
While you're drinking, like while you're
yeah,
drunk.
I'm completely wasted. Like, and I have friends at my mother-in-law's house, and I for whatever reason, I think there was something said or done out of context, and I took it out of context.
Because you're drunk.
Because you're drunk. So you're thinking, oh, this person's attacking the unfortunate event that happened to my wife and I just lost it. I'm like, no, you're not going to do that. So I go off the rails. I'm yelling. Now my mother-in-law is yelling at me, and she's literally the last person in this earth that I ever want to see like that again. And it kind of just ended. Like, I don't know. I was like, okay, well, I'm done. Said what I needed to say. I'm going to go to sleep now. So keep in mind, through all this, my parents are absent. I haven't talked to them probably in about well over a year at this point. So it's like, here's all this going on, and my parents are nowhere to be found. Nowhere. And who's having to pick up all the pieces and fix everything? My wife and my mother. Because of the lack of involvement or care or give a you-know-what by them.
Can you explain kind of that situation?
But just kind of going back to what I had said earlier, it was like...
Was it more blaming?
Yeah. Like, I remember the first time I had come home and I had saw some really screwed up stuff while at work. And I was kind of like clammy and cold. And it's like July. And you know how hot it gets around here. And I just felt really clammy and cold. And I remember going home when I was still living with my parents. Again, just looking for this to be consoled. And I remember hearing it from both my parents. Don't know what you want us to tell you. That's what you chose. I'm like, all right. Good to go. So, all right, well, I can't sleep now because I just saw this horrific thing. Let me go buy beer so I can go to sleep. It's literally how that started to transpire. Fast forward to when I started dating my wife, and I had left my parents' home under less than ideal conditions. I remember I was getting ready to go to work, and I was working graves. And, you know as well as I do that hour as you're getting ready, like you're transforming, you're preparing yourself for making that transition from I'm not just me anymore. Now I have to worry about my safety and the safety of others. And you're kind of just mentally preparing for that mindset. So I remember I'm getting ready to leave, and my dad was upset at me over something. I don't even remember what it was. And I'm not gonna lie, like I wasn't really paying attention to him. It was just nagging and nagging and nagging, and I already had my radio on just to kind of, because I always like to listen to the radio a little bit before I would call in service, so I could see, like, do I need to hurry? Is there something going on right now that I need to help with? So I turned my radio on and I was listening while I remember him grabbing me by the arm. And without even hesitating, like, I turned around and I took him to the floor. I'm getting ready to get my handcuffs out, and I realized what I'd done. And I looked at him and I'm like, you know what? I don't let bad guys on the street do this to me. You're not going to do this to me either. So I kind of just walked away, got on my unit, and I took off, and I called my wife. And I couldn't even talk because I was bawling. And she had told me, you know, the next day, you know, when you get off in the morning, don't go home. Just come here. So keep in mind, it's my wife, my mother-in-law, and her younger brother, younger sister in the house. And I was welcomed with open arms, with no expectation of nothing, into their house. And that's how I left. And I never went back. So I gained a new family when I started dating my wife and when we got married. So the fact that I was hurting them because of this honestly meant more to me than when I was hurting my own family.
Damn.
Yeah.
You talk to him now?
You know, now it's just real weird. Honestly, feel like we're just in different spots right now. There's a lot of things that I've done that we do that I know that they don't approve of, but they don't want to address the elephant in the room and talk about it. So the relationship I have with my parents is kind of like a transactional kind of thing. Like, yeah, you're my kid, but only when I need something. So I kind of take that with a grain of salt.
How does that make you feel?
You know, in that almost 2 years that I had gone without talking to him, I had done a lot of growing up. I really did. That's when I stopped drinking altogether. It was a little hard at first. Hit a couple of potholes in the road, but nonetheless, you know, I did it.
When was this?
So I stopped drinking completely. It was actually our anniversary. So it was November 16th, 2023.
Okay.
And I was up in Santa Fe for training. And those were the worst trips, man. Those trips where you go by yourself.
That hotel whiskey tastes better.
Yeah, you're out on business, so you know the wife doesn't really have a whole lot of room to be upset at you for leaving, but you know, deep in the back of their mind, you know, like, oh my God, I shouldn't have left. But yeah, that was the last time. And in that moment, when I woke up and I realized everything that had happened and the mess that had unfolded, I was hit with an ultimatum that I had gotten before, but this time I knew she was serious.
This is while at training.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about that?
So that whole week, I was gone for about a week. And later on this came out, but I was literally drinking the entire week that I was up there. And that year I had been on and off of my sobriety the whole year. A lot of other stuff had happened in 2023, and it was just really hard to stay consistent with it.
Mm-hmm.
So
you remember like the times, like maybe one day this time, and I got to 10 days this time?
Yeah, like it was a couple months. Like I would do good for a couple months, but I'd hit that 6-7 month mark, and it's like, I'll try again.
At that point, is it more thinking about your friends though, or is it just stuff at work? Or just
It is stuff at work. It was stuff at home. It was just true spiritual warfare at this point. Of you think you got this, but I'm gonna remind you really quick what's in control of your life. And this is the water bottle, but obviously I'm referring to the beer bottle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go to this training, and it's actually really good training. I enjoyed it, but the entire time I'm there, I'm drinking, and she has no idea that I'm doing it. Meanwhile, all the while, she has a cousin who's literally dying from cirrhosis of the liver. And I take this as no, that's not going to be me. I'll be fine. So I end up going out with some of the guys in the class, and you know, my wife always would tell me, you're a messy drunk. I always knew when you were drinking, where I know when you're drinking because you don't make sense. Texts become very short. So of course I got caught, and at this point it's like, all right, I'll just ask for forgiveness and permission. And
she's good.
I'm telling you, it's a freaking superpower that she's got. And honestly, I think if it had been anybody else, I'd probably still be a mess, because they would have been like, oh no, it's okay, he can do what he wants. No, not this one, man. It don't work like that with this one. You know, I go out and got wasted, and keep in mind, this is our anniversary. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I really screwed this one up. And she had told me, you stop drinking or I'm leaving you. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I've heard this ultimatum I don't know how many times.
Why was this different?
Because I knew she was serious. Not that I'm underplaying any other time before this, but this time was just something hit different. You know? It was just like, yeah, dude, you better listen because she ain't playing no more. You know, at this point, we had overcome so much other nonsense up to this point, and it's like, this is literally the last thing that you need to fix. So I did. I stopped. And it was difficult because, again, I got put into this situation where I got out of town on training again. And I went with my sergeant. And this particular sergeant and I are actually pretty good friends outside of work. And this certain guy had ended up at his house quite a bit and ended up drinking with him. So when my wife finds out that I'm training with this guy, a guy that she also knows very well and knows how he is, she had asked me, "Are you gonna be okay?" And at this point, I'm at that weird fringe again. I'm at that 9-10 months. Well, it was probably closer to 7 or 8, honestly. But I'm at that point where I had given up on other times, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to be okay. So, we take off. We drive up to Colorado. We get to training outside of Denver. So we drive up to Centennial. And once we hit the Colorado state line, I started getting a bad thought in my head. I started thinking to myself, you know what? Who's going to know? So that evil bug got put back into my ear, man, and I started contemplating it. So when we finally get checked into the hotel, there's our hotel. There's a Topgolf right next to us, and then there's a Walmart walking distance. So we go and eat. Of course, I'm over here eating a big meal because I know what I'm wanting to do. I go to Walmart. And I don't just buy beer, man. I buy beer. I buy probably an excess of probably equivalent to 40, thinking that I'm like, oh, I could still drink. So I go back and I'm looking at all this beer that I have in my fridge. And it's a mixture of 12 packs and tall boys. And it's just all kinds of different stuff. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, that's too much. There's no way. Because I'm probably going to die if I drink all this. So I start pouring a little bit out. Well, finally, I look at the quantity that I have, and I'm like, okay, I'm good with this. So I got 1 can, and I literally got to here. And in that moment, that is literally when God told me, put it down, get rid of it, and get it out of your room. Now, I wasn't scared. I wasn't anything. I knew what I was being told, so I did it. So I get all this beer, which at this point is like 24, and I'm pouring it all down the sink. I put everything back into the boxes that it came out of. I put it in the bag. I tied it up and I left it outside and I threw it away. I went back into my room and this force just hit me like a freight train. It brought me to my knees and I cried because I knew what had just happened. I literally knew what had just happened to me. So I called my wife and I told her exactly what had just happened. And, we both agreed, that was a spiritual warfare moment. That was the enemy coming to say, nope, I still own you. I still own you with this. But God was there to remind me, no, he doesn't. And he doesn't have a say in this anymore. I do. So that was my biggest victory over my alcoholism was in that moment.
So you had an actual, how do they call that, the retreat? An actual...
It was an encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Can you explain, is it more like a feeling or actual words? Or I know everyone's is different.
To me, in that moment, he spoke to me. He spoke to me with authority. Like, no, all this is going away. You're done. I knew what I was about to do was wrong. And he was there to remind me of it.
How was the rest of the training?
It was great. It was a really, really good training. I kind of walked around a little bit prouder and cocky because of that encounter, because it's like, oh no, God's got me, man. Nothing bad's going to happen to me. So it was a really good, fulfilling sense of I'm going to be okay.
What about interacting with like your sergeants with that?
So I kind of just let him do his own thing. And since then I've been put in positions to where I've been in bars with other people, and I don't have the urge or the need or the desire to partake in that. It was really challenging because I hit my year while I was actually in boot camp. So when I had gotten out and I'm in A school in San Antonio, well, now I'm the responsible adult to all these 22, 23-year-old kids. So they're out getting drunk, and I'm downtown with these guys, and I never felt the need, the urge, or the desire to drink because I knew what I had to lose. I didn't join the Navy to have that happen to me, for me to get exposed to my alcoholism again. That wasn't my intent. So why would I allow that to happen?
Mm-hmm. How did you feel that first time? I'm guessing it happened at training. When you told your sergeant no at one point, I'm guessing? Like, hey, we're going to go to dinner or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
How'd that feel, knowing that you could say no to something and still your sergeant still likes you, your coworkers still like you? It's okay. How did that feel?
It's fulfilling. I'm not going to say that everybody's been supportive.
Oh, so there hasn't been people who...
Oh, no.
Tell me about that.
There's guys that the minute I stopped drinking, it's like, yeah, we're not friends anymore. Really? And I'm like, cool. Good riddance, man, because I don't need you around.
Dang.
And it's sad, man, because like I look at this one guy in particular. Him and I were joined at the hip. We did almost everything together. But because of my alcoholism, I made a lot of excuses for him. I ignored some warning signs of his behavior to include some advancements on my wife. And
can you go over those warning signs?
He just gave me more and more and more to drink, so I wasn't his problem, so he could achieve what he was trying to achieve. So he was a friend in disguise.
That's not, sure. Yeah, that's definitely not a friend.
Yeah. And once I stopped, a lot of people just like, oh, okay. They didn't really care one way or another. But the true friends that I did have, they were like, that's great, that's good. They never put me into situations where I felt obligated that I had to, or they were respectful of it. I did have a lot of that support, and that's really what made the difference of everything, was just being able to know that I had friends in my profession that were accepting and okay with what was going on.
And having that breakthrough, did you ever reflect back on whenever you were at that point, at that high point of drinking, and feeling like that stigma of like, or just whatever you're going through, trying to block it all out and not wanting to kind of speak up, like, because like you say, like, I hang out with these people, like, I'm not going to say no. But do you ever reflect back on it like, oh, like that was pretty dumb, like it would have been fine? Well, most likely it probably would have been fine altogether, and if it wasn't, it'd still be fine.
Yeah, I find myself thinking a lot about instances like that, but sometimes it hits me like a ton of bricks, man. We'll be at home, and we live a real simple life. We don't go out much. We don't really do anything. It's usually just me and her. And sometimes I get to these moments of, why are you still here? Despite all this crap that I did and said, and you're still here. It's honestly the most humbling experience that I've ever had in my life, is to know that someone can unconditionally love me that much and put up with all this shit for as long as she did, and would probably do it again. Not that I want it to happen, but she'd probably do it again too. To me, that's the biggest thing that's worth fighting for, is that in and of itself.
Especially someone who was just dating you at the time.
Exactly. She could have ran at the first sign of danger, so to speak, and I know that she was probably contemplating it. Even once we got married, it continued on. But just how God spoke to me, I'm pretty sure He spoke to her too.
When you haven't had that last drink, or whenever you did have that last drink, were you already going to church and kind of doing your walk with that at that time?
Yes.
Before that?
Yeah. So I had told you, I got baptized in January 2022.
And then this happened at 23.
Oh,
right?
Man, that's just a fraction of what happened. Hanging out with these guys that I thought were my friends, I go and I get drunk with them, and then I'm running away from my wife. I end up leaving our town, coming down here, and drink more. And then I ended up somewhere that I had no business being. I'm going to leave that there, only to come home at 4:30 in the morning, knowing that I had to go to work 2 hours later. Did I go to work that day? No, I didn't. That's how bad it got. It was affecting my performance at work. I mean, I'm not saying that I was showing up to work drunk still, because I wasn't. Hungover, yeah, I'll admit to that. But to the point where I was out that late, knowing that I had somewhere to be, and it was another training. I had to go to training, and I didn't end up going because I was still freaking drunk the night before. After being with people I shouldn't have been with, and being at a place I didn't have any business being at. So when you're walking with God and you make that decision of, yes, Jesus, I accept you as my Lord and my Savior, you better be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Because the enemy wants to keep what he thinks is his. So when we talk about that whole putting on the full armor of God from Ephesians, that's literally what that means, is be ready, because you could be in the fight for your life because of what's coming. And unfortunately, I wasn't strong. I wasn't ready for that, which is why it took me so long to finally just stop. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. As far as your recovery process of doing it, whenever that you did have that final drink, did you ever reflect back while you were at your height and think about, like, was there any resources from, like, we're talking like AA meetings or even therapy itself? Like, was that ever presented to you?
So I actually did start seeing a therapist, and I was doing the EMDR stuff, the eye detection.
Mm-hmm. While you were
while I was
still drinking.
While I was in recovery.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I had stopped drinking, and so literally the night that I decided I wasn't going to drink anymore, and between the uncertainty if I was going to have a wife when I came home from this training, I decided to reach out to a therapist that was recommended to me by a friend. He was based out of Albuquerque, so I didn't ever really get to do any one-on-one with him in person. So all of our sessions were done on Zoom.
Okay.
But I mean, that was a tremendous resource for me, was doing that EMDR stuff with him, and him being a retired police officer from up there in the Albuquerque area. I was like, okay, this guy gets me. He knows what I'm talking about. He can help me. He can help me figure this out. So between doing that and going to church regularly and just starting to do things again that I wanted to do for so long, it all aided in that recovery process.
Any other resources you did?
Really, outside of that, no, just church and that therapy.
That's good. For anyone that's listening, as far as, like, let's say a cadet going through the academy, or maybe someone like suffering silently in the same situation, your story is not going to be as uncommon, right, as all the people that you know who you're drinking with as well. So you kind of already seen them doing their path on the same trajectory that you were doing. Is there anything you would recommend to anyone kind of going through the same thing?
The people that are making you drink aren't your friends, or the people that you feel that you have to drink for, they're not your friends. You know, you have to if I could go back and tell a 22-year-old me anything, it would be stop while you're ahead. This job isn't who you are, it's just what you do for a living. And I'm on the side of, I didn't pick it, it chose me. Through God's plan and his intention for me was to do this job, I'm here to serve. But to even somebody my age who's sitting around looking at all his shift partners get married and have kids, and you're sitting there by yourself. Well, there's a reason why you're sitting by yourself. So you need to start identifying those things that need to go. You know, I can't tell you how many friends I have that I know that are either my age or a little bit older than me. You know, they, on the shell, on the outside, they look like they have it all. The nice truck, the freedom to do whatever they want. But you know what? They go home to an empty house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I get to go home to a wife that I know that loves me and cares about me and supports everything that I do. That's my blessing that I get to go home to. What do these guys get to go home to? A bottle.
I love that, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you having the courage to kind of say your story. Like I said, it's not easy to be able to explain that. And I really appreciate that you reached out and be able to tell everyone that's listening your story and people who could kind of resonate with that story itself. So thanks for making the drive down here and telling that story.
No problem. I enjoyed it. Really did. And, you know, for anybody who's listening, if any part of this has anything to do with you, be strong, find faith, take that leap, and who knows, you could be sitting in my position and shedding light on this problem that we have in our profession, because it is, and you can help yourself and help somebody else.
Exactly. Well, and right there, you all have a good one and be safe. Thanks, man. And remember, seeking help is not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of strength. The fact is, it's not about being depressed or crazy. It's just about healing. Everyone has different mental injuries, some bigger, some smaller, and everybody heals in their own way, but we all could benefit from healing. This is where the stigma broke for me, and I hope it breaks for you. Go and talk with someone today who cares what anyone thinks. Comment down below when your stigma first broke. I would love to hear it. Stay safe and break your blue wall.